Over the last week, you may have seen that I got admitted into Harvard, Stanford, Penn and Columbia.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
And that was a really cool moment. But I'm not leaving until July/August. And so what I figured over these next few months is I would take all the information that I've gathered over the last 4 years of working on this dream, 4 or 5 years of working towards this dream, and give it all away, give as much knowledge as I can to make the college application process, to make reaching your dreams a more realistic possibility, make it easier for you than it was for me. So what we're going to be doing today is just jumping into the crux of an application, which is going to be your resume and your statement of purpose. And I'm just going to share with you what I use to get into all the graduate schools that I applied for. So I'm going to go into my resume first and talk about the things that I did. As context, I'm 23 now. I just finished my undergrad. I finished my honours year. So in Australia, we have a 4-year honours degree program. And now I'm going to be studying my master's in learning design. So in a master's of education in learning design, which is essentially education technology. So yeah, let's just jump into it. And again, this isn't really to gloat or anything like that. To me, this is just a piece of paper with things that I've done in the past. It doesn't define who I am, just as your accomplishments don't define who you are. But hopefully from this, you can get some ideas, maybe inspiration. And yeah, just take some ideas from this format. So the first thing is, of course, education. So I just put down, I studied mechanical engineering in my undergraduate degree, did my thesis and got first class honors for it, which is essentially just averaging above 80% in Australia, which is, it's tough. It's the highest honors that you can get for a degree, but definitely not impossible. My grades and weighted average wasn't exactly stellar, I would argue. So I had a GPA of 6.742 out of 7 and a WAM of, I guess you could round it up to 84%, give or take. I was also the UWA Volunteer of the Year for my university, and I also had an engineering scholarship for a couple of years there. So nothing really too fancy there. I definitely was someone who didn't achieve much academically in regards to the fact like I wasn't top of the class. I wasn't the perfect student, but I did enough to get by. And what I would say is, as long as your average is probably above 80%, I don't think, unless you're topping units, I don't think they really care what you get in between that. What I would say they're really focused on is your professional experience and the things you've done outside of the classroom. So in regards to my professional experience, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. So I structured it around education specifically. I had other internships and professional experiences, but they didn't tie to the field of education. So I didn't feel like putting them into my resume. They were just things that I did when I was younger and realized that I didn't want to do those things anymore. So my journey in education started when I was volunteering just at a university level organization, so just a university club, and I served as the general manager and finance manager, where I was managing around 130 to 170 volunteers every semester. And what we would do is go into low socioeconomic schools and teach the kids soft skills. It was definitely a really great way to get some introductory level experience as a leader, but probably not the thing that defined my application. It was just something that I kind of tacked on at the end. But that experience of leading in an organization inspired the work that I started doing, which is what is going to be the main crux of my application. So when I was 19 years old, I wanted to do something big. I decided that I didn't want to be normal. I really wanted to lead a life where I'm maximizing everything that I could. And I wanted to do something big. So I thought back to my time in school, and I remembered how boring and crap the textbooks were that we would use during high school. And I thought, well, what if I rewrite those? What if I make those really engaging for high school students? And what if I one-up the existing textbooks by making a non-for-profit resource where for every 2 we sell, we produce and donate a third to the library of a school in a low socioeconomic area. And so I started Thrive Ed, and that's what I called the organization. I started rewriting the Year 12 textbooks when I was 19 years old, and I spent about 3 years working on that. I spent a year in pretty much radio silence writing my first chemistry book. So I wrote a book in Year 12 chemistry, and I wrote it with 4 friends, and then we built out this organization, and over time we expanded it out to have 4 books published and about 25 volunteers from memory. So that was really cool. That was a really awesome charity, and I wanted to keep building on that. So what I did around a year and a half ago, I merged that organization with one of my mates' organizations to form Elucidate Education, which is one of the charities that I now help to run. So I co-founded that, and basically it took the textbooks that I wrote and added an online platform to it. So what we were able to do is create a non-for-profit that provided free online content and then also non-for-profit textbooks. So that right there, that education entrepreneurship experience does make up, I would say, a huge part of my application. But then the other half for me is not just formal learning in the schooling environment, but also social emotional learning, which is also what I think is a really important thing given the mental health statistics at the moment in Australia, the US, the whole world. It's pretty shitty at the moment. So for me, that's an equally important aspect of what I want to do with my life. So the other things that I put down were the documentary that I made, again, all centered around social emotional learning and teaching kids how they can take their lives and change them if they're not happy to go towards chasing their dreams. And I made a documentary about how to do that. And then I also did some research work at my local university's Graduate School of Education, exploring mental health in Western Australia. So that's the crux of my professional experience for education, but also I've published 6 books. So I published the 2 chemistry books, I published the 2 maths books, and then I also have a chemistry unit 3 and 4 publication there, which is technically just a merged copy of the old 2 chemistry books, but I still count it as a publication because there was significant refining there and changes to be made. And then the final one was Realizing Dreams, which again is centered around life education, social emotional learning. That was a 218-page book that I wrote. So that's pretty much the book publications that I had. Again, you don't need to do this much to get into these schools. I'm just kind of telling you how my life was. So the other big thing, I'm going to skip over the honors, awards, and distinctions that I've achieved, which is just kind of awards, which are a result of my hard work and dedication, I would say. Like, they're not something that you aim for. They're just something that you get as a result of working hard. I want to go to the leadership in sport category, which is another thing I had a big background in. So growing up, I was never really that good at sport. I was never gifted in any sport, but after leaving school, I started to fall in love with the sport of Ninja Warrior. Some of the key things I did was like the national championships, competing at the world championships as well, but also tying that to my love for speaking and commentating. So I did a lot of commentating for the World Ninja League, for the Australian Ninja Leagues and local competitions. And then also I created a 24-hour pull-up fundraiser, which was a really cool moment where I got all the best ninjas from Western Australia to do pull-ups for 24 hours to break David Goggins' world record. So that's that. And then I'm just going to go to the back page of my resume. Again, there are a lot of other things I probably could have included, but I just tried to keep it concise to the experiences that really matter or the things that I'm proud of and I want to talk about. So then I put ambassadorship and media experience because I've had a bit of experience in the media. So I talked about the charity-based television show I was cast for. I did some Channel 9, which is just like the Australian news network. I did some spokesperson work for them. I also did a TEDx talk back in the day, which you can also do if you just go and apply and you have a good idea. And then just some volunteering experience down the bottom. So I've been a part of the Global Shapers community, which is something that anyone from any part of the world can get involved in. There's likely going to be a local hub, and if you just want to meet like-minded, high-achieving people, you can get involved in that. I've also did some judging. I won some scholarships, and then at the bottom, I put some hobbies that I had, which is just related to dance, Ironmans, endurance running, and just ambassadorship roles that I've had in the past. So you might be looking at that resume and you'd have 2 schools of thought. One side of the equation is you go, holy crap, I haven't done that much. Well, the other side of it is maybe you've done way more than that. And if you've done way more than that, then odds are you're ready to apply. But if you haven't done that much amount of work, that is also fine. You have to remember that I got accepted into every school that I applied for and also was a recipient of some form of scholarship funding for 2 of them. So it was probably overkill, the resume and the experiences that I've had at 23 years old. And I don't think you need to accomplish all of this. I think you just need some form of a spike, a point of interest. And if you have that, you can carry that forward in your application, because what they're really looking for is not the person that has the nicest resume or the person that's done a million things. What they're looking for is someone just with a genuine interest in a very specific area. And that's where the personal statement comes in. Okay, now I want to get into the crux, which is a personal statement. Let's just get into it. I start the first 4 paragraphs with the words "it's nothing" as a kind of cue that I'm starting a new topic every single time. So my first paragraph goes, "It's nothing personal, but my Australian high school was not for me. I sat subserviently still for 5 days a week, struggling to absorb the information from my teacher's monotone recitals. I hid in the toilets at recess to curb my social anxieties and placed my self-worth in my test results to keep me studying through the late hours of the night. Unable to find inspiration, I found it impossible to pay attention in class for more than 10 minutes at a time. As a result, I taught myself through the online learning platform Khan Academy. Listening to the engaging voice of Sal Khan in his freely available videos empowered me to thrive through school and inspired the non-profit work I do today, supporting tens of thousands of young Australians." So this has a little bit of a tie to my professional background, a little bit of a subtle flex, you could say, at the end of that paragraph. But for the most part, it's just setting a scene of my background, my struggles with school and education and my perspectives on it, and setting the scene for the fact that I had a pretty distasteful experience going through school, despite going to a private school. This is just how I felt going through it. Again, pretty deep. There are some parts of my personal statement that I'm going to leave out just because they are really deep, and I don't really feel comfortable sharing those parts, but hopefully you can get the gist. Now we jump into the second paragraph. "It's nothing Australia seems to be ashamed of, but our education system suppresses students from low socioeconomic backgrounds. In my first year of university, I mentored a class of Year 10 students in a low socioeconomic school just 20 kilometers outside of Perth, and I asked them, 'Who here believes they can go to university?' Out of 30 students, only 2 put their hands up. Unfortunately, socioeconomic status is one of our strongest determinants of educational attainment in Australia, meaning the fates of hundreds of thousands of young Australians is decided before they set foot in the classroom." Again, this is all building up towards something that you're going to find out about very soon. So 2 very distasteful experiences I had with the formalized nature of our education system, the fact that it's highly inequitable, it's also very disengaging. And that's that so far. The third paragraph I'm going to not really talk about just because it ties back to my experiences with mental health and my own struggles. But basically what I'm talking about in that paragraph, I start with, "It's nothing Australian schools seem to care about, but high school failed my mental health." And then I kind of dive into my struggles following school and how I felt the absence of social emotional learning in the high school curriculum was a root cause for that fact. I also tied it to my graduate school education research. So all of that so far has been very personal. There is no real flexing there. There is no real, this is my accomplishments. And I felt that having that personal feeling would really set me up for success in this back half, which is very formal. So this fourth paragraph is about statistics. And I think that's a really powerful and underrated thing that a lot of people don't particularly touch on. With statistics, what you're able to do is show the people that there's a genuine problem. Like, my experiences aren't sufficient enough to justify working on a project. I need to show that through statistics that this is a systemic problem within my country and that I want to do something about it, and statistics are the best way to prove it. So you're going to see some statistics now that are pretty abysmal, to be honest. You're going to be blown away by how bad Australia's education system is getting at the moment. So it's nothing our education policymakers seem to be doing anything about, but millions of Australian students are just like me and the low socioeconomic students I mentored. In Australia, Year 10 students from low socioeconomic backgrounds are 3 years behind their peers from high socioeconomic backgrounds. Since 2001, our international PISA results in numeracy, reading, and writing have all declined every 3 years. So every 3 years, Australia since 2001 has gotten worse in reading, writing, and numeracy, which is just a staggering achievement in and of itself. Like, to not have any of them go up and all of them decline, to me is just mind-boggling. Finally, in 2021, it was recorded that 1.2 million young Australians aged 16 to 24 have experienced a 12-month mental health disorder. Again, a really sobering statistic about social emotional learning and the fact that Australian youth are really struggling. I think we've got mental health statistics that 38% of our youth, Australian youth, have experienced a mental health disorder. So 38% is coming upwards towards almost half, which is just mind-blowing. Okay, again, really important to note that I still haven't gone into any of my achievements or anything that I've really done so far. And that's a very unique choice, I would argue. It's very contextual as to whether or not you should do that, but that's just what I did. And now I'm kind of going to go into, okay, this is the problem, that's the problem statement. Now let's go into my background and then go into the solution. So, as a 6-time co-author and the co-founder of one of Australia's largest edtech non-for-profits, Elucidate Education, I have worked tirelessly to provide more than 100,000 students with their education by giving them equitable access to the textbooks, online content, and videos they need to succeed in school. Additionally, as a life skills educator, I have published my own non-fiction book called Realizing Dreams, made countless life education films, and taught thousands of students social emotional skills through giving speeches at their schools. So again, experience in the formal education space, experience in the social emotional learning space, the two areas that I want to go into. So I've set my my criteria. I've set what I'm good at. I've kind of covered what I've done in my life in a very concise way, and now I'm going to move into what I want to do with my life. Then I go, therefore, my ambitions are to develop 2 nationwide edtech initiatives that will significantly advance Australia's education equity and holistic education efforts. It's really important that you have a clear, defined objective. I'm pretty sure you know that now. And the way in which I achieve that is literally just by having bullet points or just numbers, like numbered initiatives that I want to introduce. So it's very clear what I want to do. So I said, my first EdTech initiative aims to expand Elucidate Education Australia-wide to provide our 750,000 Year 10, 11, and 12 students with free access to all the textbooks, online content, educational videos, and assessment software they need to succeed in school. And then the second one is, my second EdTech initiative aims to build a nationwide life education curriculum that will be freely available on the Elucidate Education platform. To do this, I plan to collaborate with leading experts in social emotional learning to create engaging videos and online content that will equip millions of young Australians with the knowledge they need to thrive beyond school. So I've made it very clear throughout. I started with my background, why it's meaningful to me, with my personal side. I then spoke about the statistics in Australia to show that I'm not alone in those experiences. Then I talked about my work experience and why I'm justified. And then I set my ambitions. So I've really set myself up by ticking all the boxes of having that personal upbringing, having my expertise, having the problem statement, and showing that it's of a real issue in Australia and how I plan to solve it. So those are all the things that you really want to be hitting at the start. And then the whole back end, the remaining 2 and a bit pages of my personal statement is dedicated towards the program itself. So whether that be Harvard, Stanford, Columbia, or Penn, I did a lot of research into the professors, the concentrations, the program structure. And I'm not going to go through that now because I think that should really be for you to figure out yourself so that you make an informed decision about the program that you want to take. But I will put up screenshots so that you can have a go at reading through them and seeing how I went about tying that to the first half of my statement. The things I would touch on are the professors you want to work with, the units you want to take, and then also perhaps the concentration that you want to specialize in for your degree, and any facilities you want to take use of or research places that you want to work at, and link them back to how that's going to help you to achieve your goals. But that's a little bit about my story. That's a little bit about my background. I'm hoping to make videos in the weeks to come a lot more detailed and talk about all the different scholarships that you can apply for and my experiences going through those, and being finalists for a lot of the big ones like the Rhodes and the Fulbright and stuff like that, and sharing my experiences so that you guys can have an easier journey. Again, just remember that you shouldn't compare yourself to me, whether you are more accomplished or less accomplished or anything in between. What really it comes down to, in my view, is just having a very meaningful personal statement and a really worthwhile goal is probably the main thing. Like, my two ambitions there are really big and they're meaningful in the Australian context if I can pull them off. And so Harvard sees that and they go, okay, I want to take a chance on this guy because he's got these two big ambitions. They're probably going to fail, but if they work, it's going to do a great deal of good for this world by providing a lot of free educational content for a lot of young Australians who really need it. So that's my experience and that's my personal statement. That's the first half of it. And if you have any other video suggestions or things that you want covered, I can definitely go through them all. This I just figured would be a good introductory video because all of that information is really important and I have a lot of other content and just a lot of other knowledge to give you guys. So see you next time.